Another check-in after session number 3 with the wonderful Dipti. These are videos for me to talk and process about what the session was about, and how it sits with me afterwards. Dipti said, "How do you feel?" I feel quite heady, which is funny because I've probably been more in my heart in this session, but it, like, you know, and it's a bit like you can feel a bit of brain fog coming on. So we talked today about beliefs. We talked about it last week, but I thought about some of the beliefs that I had in my head about what grief was, and we talked about see, my brain fog is settling in right now. What else did we talk about? We talked about so many things, but what was really good about today's session was I was able to just process the way that I've been thinking and the things that have been holding me back. So one of the things that I would say to myself, quite often, is if I hadn't done the work on myself in the last 2 years, I probably wouldn't be where I am right now. But sometimes we minimise, and this is one of the things we were talking about, we minimise what we're going through in so many different ways, and that's how I've been minimising it. I think I've been thinking I am doing really well. I mean, whatever that looks like, what does that even look like? But I think because I've said I'm in a really good place, it's made me not deal with the things that I need to deal with, just emotions that are coming up. And we talked about how we can become avoiders, absorbers of other people's problems, fixers. We want to fix everybody else. We don't want to tune in with what's going on with us and how we're feeling. And that's definitely one that's come up for me. A really interesting point is just the way that society perceives us. So I was thinking, it's so conflicted, because on one hand I think if people don't see me cry, they're going to think I'm over it and that it doesn't hurt anymore. But then if I'm crying at loads of the times that people see me, people will think that I'm struggling and I'm out of control and I can't cope, and I don't want to be seen as not being able to cope and to be weak. So yeah, it's just so interesting, isn't it? Even if consciously we don't think about these things, but when we talk about it with people, that actually that's how we do feel. I think as well, because I am a person that is often the one that people come to for advice and support, I haven't wanted to be perceived as not being able to cope, and that people can no longer come to me with their problems or come to me to talk to me about things, because that's a really important role that I play as a person. So I wouldn't want people to think that I can't cope or I'm struggling, and so I'm not going to put that on Laura because she's going through so much already, and it's not that. I like to help people, but what becomes unhealthy is when we're helping other people but not dealing with what's going on with our own grief and our own things. So I had an emotional moment, and felt it, I'd been definitely holding back throughout the first bit of the call, and I admitted this when I started to get upset. And the part that got upset us, we was talking about photos, and I've not actually been able to put any photos up of my dad at the moment. And I suppose it's that avoidance. It's that if there's a photo, I'm thinking about it enough in the day. I don't need to see him and then think about it again and potentially get emotional and then be stuck in a spiral. And again, it's that, like, coming back to how I felt at the time that it happened. Whenever I have these moments where I feel like I'm going to get emotional, I feel like I'm going back to that moment in time where I absolutely felt out of control and overwhelmed by sadness, could not see how I could get past that feeling. And it's that fear of my mind trying to keep me safe and not wanting to go back there. And I suppose I see having a photo up of him as a constant reminder. But what was lovely that Dipti said today was that your relationship with somebody when they die is never over. It's just in a different way. So there may be things where you light a candle for them every day, or you have a conversation with them in your head, or you write to them, or you text them, or, you know, it doesn't ever end. It's just you have to find a new way. But I have just been trying to avoid uncomfortable feelings. So I talked to her last night about I've been journaling, but one of the questions that came up for me that I found really difficult, and I just skipped past it, was how did you feel when he died? And I thought, oh God, no, I can't think about that right now. And I let it go, and I moved on, and I moved on to another question in the journal, and I started journaling around that instead. And then last night I thought to myself, I'm going to ask Dipti what she thinks about that. Should we keep going over things in our head? Is that quite unhealthy to do that? And it was really interesting because after I'd thought I'll ask her, I went through in my head whilst I was trying to go to sleep the whole situation from the moment I found out up to the next day, like every scenario, how I felt, the conversations we had, and then that feeling started coming back to me where I was feeling that adrenaline's going through your veins, you start to breathe more in your chest, and you just feel like a bit panicky, and then you can't, it's so easy to just spiral in that situation. And so in the session today we just started talking about what do we mean by why is it unhealthy, what do I mean by that? And I think I mean, is it healthy for me to keep going back to those moments where people say, don't they, don't dwell on the past, move forward. And me and Dipti talked last week about how when somebody's passed away and we're grieving, we spend so much time in the past and we spend so much time in the future, and we should just spend more time in the present. And that's so true. But what's nice to hear is that it's so normal to do that. It's so normal to go back to the past and to relive situations, think about how we could have done things differently, and then hop over to the future and think, oh my God, they're going to miss out on this, they're never going to see this, I'm going to have to go through this with somebody else. And so we talked about how it's perfectly normal to go through things, but as part of the process, what she talked about was feeling complete. And when we feel complete, we no longer have that intense feeling when we talk or think about the past and what's happened in that moment. We can say it still hurts, we still maybe feel emotional, but we don't relive that feeling of that being out of control, or it just doesn't feel like it did then. So I think it's just allowing myself to know that everything that I'm going through is perfectly normal, and it helps me to talk about it and to process these things with somebody else that actually knows like what they're talking about. Because we talked as well today about so many external factors that can hinder or just make grief feel so much worse. Like there's some of the things that people say to us that are not particularly helpful at that time. So you'll get over this, or maybe they're not in pain anymore and they feel at peace. And the thing is that these are things that I would be saying to people. So I am so much more aware of other people's grief now that I am going through it, and just how important it is to the language you use. And one of the things we spoke about that I think is so important is how often do we write something about what we've been through, and people will say, oh my God, I know exactly how you feel, and then they'll tell you all about their story, or they'll give you so much what they think is value and so much support and help, but actually you weren't asking for that. So it's so important to just validate how people are feeling without saying this happened to me as well, or but you will feel better soon, or there shouldn't be any, it should just be I'm really sorry for your loss, sending you a kiss, sending you a hug. There shouldn't be any more to that sentence when people are explaining how they feel about grief or any situation really. But I think it's got worse as I see it more maybe because I'm in the entrepreneurial space, but I feel like we've got worse because we're told that we should be giving people value, and we should be I don't know, I feel like the online space is just so full of people giving advice when they've not been asked to give advice. And so I'm just finding it all really fascinating and so nice to be able to just process and talk about these things. And I was just saying to Ali, isn't it funny how you can not like but like a session about grief? Like, I was looking forward to starting these sessions, which is bizarre. And yet I don't like them because I don't like to cry, but I do like them because it's starting to make sense to me and I'm able to process things and feel things are feeling a bit easier. So I hope that this has helped if anyone watches this, and it's been good to do a bit of a debrief, and I hope that you're well. Please reach out to me if you need any support, just somebody to just say how you feel without somebody having to comment back their experience, or just talk. That's the best thing that we can do. Talk and process and just be kind to yourself and allow yourself the time to just ride the waves. That's what it is, isn't it? It's like a roller coaster. It's like the waves. We're on this big wave of emotion and then we're back to normal, we're fine, and it's overwhelming. It's a lot. So I'm sending you lots of love if you're feeling this or you've felt this, and hope that this video helps in some way. See you later.